That night, the ocean roared like a beast chained in fury, each wave smashing against the cliffs, echoing like a scream from the abyss. I stood by the window, holding a glass of red wine, watching as the storm ravaged the small town of Blue Harbor. I wasn't scared, but something else stirred within me, a darker storm brewing deep inside. I'm Samantha, 45 years old. My life is like the sea on a calm day, endless, peaceful, and solitary. I've lived in Blue Harbor for 8 years, ever since I left the busy city I once called home. This place is my retreat, a secluded corner where I shut myself off from all relationships and painful memories. My marriage ended long ago, a quiet split with no arguments, no tears, just two people who once loved each other, suddenly becoming strangers. Since the divorce, I've told myself I'm fine, that I'm used to being alone. But there's one thing I've never said aloud. I miss having someone by my side. My house sits right at the cliff's edge, overlooking the ocean. A perfect place for someone to vanish from the world or for the world to forget them. And I embraced that. But tonight, as lightning split the sky and the wind screamed off the shore, an uneasy feeling took hold of me, a sense that something was coming. I had no idea that in just a few moments, a knock at my door would change everything. Bam, bam, bam. The sound was like a punch in the quiet of my home. My heart raced. Who could be out there at this hour? I jumped up, nearly dropping my wine. Outside, the storm raged on, waves crashing against the cliffs. I'd never had visitors, especially on such a fierce night. A cold shiver ran down my spine. Who could it be? A stranger? A wanderer? Or something worse? Slowly, I made my way to the door, each step deliberate, cautious. When I was close, I stopped, holding my breath, pressing my ear to the cold wood. Silence. Only the wind howled through the cracks in the door and the rain beat against the roof. I grasped the doorknob, torn between two thoughts. Should I open it or not? Then the knock came again, more urgent. Samantha. I froze. That voice. I knew that voice. Without thinking, my hand flung the door open. A strong wind rushed in, bringing with it cold water that splashed my face. There, drenched in the rain, stood Marcus. His dark brown hair stuck to his forehead, his thick coat soaked through. I didn't know Marcus well, just that he lived a few streets away, a quiet man who spent his mornings alone at the seaside cafe. But I'd never seen him at my door on a night like this. I stared into his eyes, tired, worried, and somehow fearful. "Marcus, what's wrong?" I shouted over the wind. He swallowed, struggling to find the words. "I need help. My car broke down on the road nearby, and my phone died. I didn't know where else to go." There was something in his eyes, a deeper emotion, something more than just his explanation. It made it impossible to refuse. "Come in." I opened the door wider. Marcus hesitated for a second, then stepped inside. I slammed the door behind him, blocking out the cold. The room was filled with nothing but the sound of our breathing and an indescribable tension in the air. Boom! 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 3 loud knocks echoed through the storm, shaking the silence in the house. My wineglass trembled in my hand, spilling a bit of liquid over the edge. I jumped, my heart racing again. Who could be at the door now? The wind howled outside, causing the windows to tremble. I turned to face the door, unease gnawing at me. No one would come to my house at this hour. It was storming, and the power was out in the town. No one would be out in this weather. I set the wine glass down and walked slowly toward the door, listening intently for anything besides the storm. I told myself it was probably just the wind, maybe a branch banging against the door, something blown by the storm. But as I turned to go back to the sofa, bang, bang, bang. The knocking was louder, more desperate, as if someone was frantic to get in. I froze, a chill crawling down my spine. What if it was someone in need of help? But what if it wasn't? What if it was a threat? I glanced at my phone on the table. No signal. The storm had knocked out the line. I was alone. Samantha! I held my breath. That voice again. Without thinking, I flung the latch and yanked the door open. The wind pushed in, almost knocking me over. The cold air whipped at my face. And standing there, drenched by the rain, was Marcus. His hair was plastered to his forehead, his dark coat clinging to his body. Water dripped from his chin, mingling with the rain splattering on the steps. I had seen Marcus a few times before. A quiet man in his 50s who had just moved to town. He lived near the beach, and I'd noticed him sitting alone at the cafe early in the mornings. But I had never seen him like this. His eyes tired, confused, and filled with something darker. "Marcus, what's wrong?" I shouted above the wind. He swallowed hard, glancing back at the storm still raging behind him. My car broke down nearby, and my phone died. I didn't know where else to go. His explanation seemed simple enough, but something didn't add up. A man like Marcus, tall and strong, shouldn't have been panicking over a dead car battery. I stared at him, trying to read his eyes, but all I saw was another storm, swirling just beneath the surface. Part of me wanted to ask more, but another part, a deeper part, simply wanted to let him in without question. "Come in." Marcus hesitated for just a moment, then stepped inside. As soon as I closed the door, the house grew oddly quiet. The howling wind and pounding rain outside seemed to disappear. The only sound left was Marcus's heavy breathing and the steady drip of water from his clothes onto the floor. I grabbed a towel from the chair and handed it to him. "Are you cold?" I asked, my voice quieter now, uncertain. He nodded slightly, taking the towel. "Thanks," he said, his voice trembling, though I couldn't tell if it was from the cold or something else. I studied him longer, his hair dripping with water, his face sharp and tired. But there was a quiet strength in him. He wasn't just caught in the storm. There was another reason he was here tonight. But I didn't ask. Not yet. Little did I know. The moment Marcus stepped through the door, I had unknowingly opened it to something bigger than myself. I wrapped a wool blanket around myself and sat across from him, the dim light from a few candles flickering between us. The power had gone out early, and the storm still raged outside. But in the room, it felt warm, despite the chaos outside. Marcus sat motionless in his chair, staring at the candle flame. He'd removed his soaked jacket, revealing a grey shirt that clung to his muscular frame. Water still dripped from his hair. He looked like he was battling something inside, a struggle that didn't belong to the storm. I broke the silence. "You live around here, right?" He looked up at me, his eyes distant. "Yeah, I moved here about 4 months ago. I've seen you at the cafe." "I usually go in the mornings," he added with a faint smile. But it wasn't quite a smile. "I guess you're not the type to hang out at coffee shops much," he said, observing me. "I prefer staying home," I shrugged. The silence fell again. But this time it wasn't awkward. It was different. I looked at Marcus, and for the first time since he walked in, I didn't feel like a stranger anymore. Maybe because we weren't all that different. I had left a life behind too, locked myself away in these walls, thinking I was doing the right thing. But deep down, I was just existing. The thunder rumbled again, but in this small room, I felt warmer than ever. I set my teacup down and leaned back in my chair. "Marcus," I said softly, "do you think this storm brought you here for a reason?" He looked at me for a long time before giving a small, genuine smile. I smiled back, feeling something shift. We sat in the candlelight, surrounded by unspoken stories and painful memories. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. We sat in the stillness, the wind whistling through the cracks in the door, and I could hear Marcus's steady breathing. The storm raged outside, but in this room, I no longer felt like I was on my own. It had been ages since I'd spent a whole night beside someone without discomfort. No forced conversation, no hollow reassurances. Just two people quietly existing together in the dim light. Marcus accepted the tea I handed him, his broad fingers wrapping around the delicate cup. His lips pressed together briefly, as if he was on the verge of speaking but held back. In the end, I was the one to speak first. "Why did you come to my door?" I asked, my gaze still fixed on the flickering candle. Marcus set his cup down carefully. Outside, a gust of wind made the flame waver. "Because I had nowhere else to go," he admitted. The honesty of his reply caught me off guard. I glanced at him, but he didn't meet my eyes. His focus remaining on the fire, his forehead slightly creased as if wrestling with his thoughts. "What do you mean?" I pressed. Marcus inhaled deeply, as though weighing his words, then finally lifted his gaze to mine. "Samantha, I drove around for hours before coming here. I didn't have a destination, but somehow I wound up outside your house." My pulse slowed. Marcus gave a faint, joyless smile. "I'm not sure why. Maybe because I saw your light on, or maybe because I just didn't want to be alone tonight." I studied him for a long moment. "Are you afraid of being alone, Marcus?" He hesitated, then gave a small nod. "I'm accustomed to it, but some nights it feels heavier than others. I know it well. The endless nights lying awake, listening to the quiet. The mornings when no one's there to share breakfast. The times you question whether you can keep going." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I reached over and rested my hand on his. He stiffened slightly, but didn't pull away. "Me too, Marcus," I murmured. "I've pretended for so long that I'm fine. But the truth is, I'm also afraid of being alone." He held my gaze, his deep blue eyes reflecting something unreadable. And in that instant, I knew we'd somehow found each other. A sudden clap of thunder shattered the quiet, followed by a streak of lightning that briefly brightened the room. Marcus flinched, looking toward the window. "Are you scared of storms?" he asked. I shook my head with a faint smile. "No, I've always liked them. They have the power to tear things apart. But afterward, everything feels renewed. The air fresher, the sky clearer. Sometimes they even bring the unexpected." Marcus watched me intently, as if committing my words to memory, then gave a slow, quiet smile. "Maybe you're right." Our eyes locked, and in that moment, I sensed a shift. I wasn't just a solitary woman staring at the ocean every night. And perhaps Marcus wasn't just a drifting man fleeing his past. We've all faced loss. We've all tried to navigate life alone. But maybe tonight we didn't have to. The next morning, I awoke to a changed world. The rain had ceased, the storm's heavy clouds giving way to a bright, clear sky. Sunlight streamed through the window, painting thin golden lines across the wooden floor. I sat up, realizing I'd fallen asleep on the couch, still wrapped in a wool blanket. The last candle long extinguished. Marcus was still there, seated by the window, staring at the scattered branches outside. I couldn't tell how long he'd been awake, but one thing was clear. He hadn't left. "You didn't sleep?" I asked, my voice rough from sleep. He turned to me, shaking his head slightly. "Not really, just thinking." I tightened the blanket around me, watching him closely. There was something new in his expression. No more uncertainty. No distance. "What are you thinking about?" I asked softly. Marcus rose and walked toward me. "I don't think I've had a real conversation like last night's in years." I let out a quiet laugh, surprised by his openness. Me neither. We held each other's gaze, as if still trying to understand what had happened between us. It wasn't a whirlwind romance or instant attraction, just two people who had crossed paths exactly when they needed to. Marcus picked up his jacket, still damp from the night before. "I should go. You've been so kind to me." A pang tightened my chest at his words. I didn't want him to leave, but I couldn't ask him to stay. I followed him to the door, and when I opened it, a crisp morning breeze swept in, the scent of rain still lingering. Marcus descended the steps, but just before he walked away, I called out, "Marcus!" He turned back. I hesitated, then took a breath. "Do you want to come back tonight? I could make dinner. Nothing fancy, but better than canned food." There was a pause before his lips curved into a small, genuine smile. "I'd like that." My heart steadied as he nodded and walked off. I stood there, watching until he vanished around the corner. As I shut the door, I realized something. The storm had ended, but something else had entered my life. Something I couldn't easily dismiss. Some things arrive unexpectedly, and what seems like chance might not be chance at all. The rest of the day, I couldn't concentrate. I tried reading, but the words blurred together. I made coffee but forgot to drink it. My thoughts kept circling back to Marcus. He's coming back tonight. The idea left me both eager and uneasy. I wasn't one to let people in easily. I'd been trapped in my solitude for too long. But there was something about Marcus that made me want to try. I busied myself preparing dinner. Simple soup and garlic bread, nothing elaborate, but enough to keep my hands occupied. Yet as I chopped vegetables, a thought struck me. I knew almost nothing about Marcus. He'd mentioned moving to town months ago, but why had no one spoken of him? Why had he come to my door? Was the storm truly the reason, or was there more? A chill ran through me as I gripped the knife tighter. Who was Marcus? And what had really brought him to me? The knock came at 7. I steadied myself, then opened the door. Marcus stood there, as quiet as before, but his eyes held something different. "I wasn't sure if you still wanted me here," he said softly. I cocked my head slightly. "Why wouldn't I want you here?" Marcus pressed his lips together before offering a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Because I don't think you really know who I am." My pulse quickened. I'd been right. There was something he wasn't telling me. I retreated a step, but kept the door open. "Then explain." He studied me for a long moment, before slowly stepping inside. When I shut the door, the atmosphere grew thick with tension. Marcus sat at the table, his gaze drifting over the meal I'd made. But instead of eating, he fixed me with a steady look. Samantha, I didn't just move here for a fresh start. I sank into the chair opposite him, my heart hammering. Then who are you? He drew a slow breath. I came here to find you. My body went rigid. Find me? I echoed, my voice unsteady. Marcus nodded. I knew you before, Samantha. We've never met, but I know about you. The air suddenly felt suffocating. Why? I asked, a chill crawling down my spine. His eyes locked onto mine, dark with something raw. Because my wife talked about you before she died. The words hit like a blow to the chest. What? I breathed. Marcus didn't look away. My wife had a best friend. Someone she always spoke of. Someone she regretted losing touch with. That person was you, Samantha. The room tilted around me. Fragmented memories rushed back. A familiar laugh, a name I'd buried. Lisa. I remembered Lisa, my old friend. We'd been inseparable once, but life had pulled us apart. The last I'd heard, she'd married a man I never met. A man named Marcus. I stared at him, the ground crumbling beneath me. Why? My voice was barely audible. Why did you come to me? Marcus exhaled slowly. Because Lisa asked me to. Before she died, she said you were lost too. That if anyone could understand what I've been through, it's you. A tempest raged inside me. The silence that followed was deafening. Lisa wanted you to find me, I repeated, the words hollow. Marcus nodded, his expression gentling. She said we were both adrift. She thought we could help each other find our way back. My jaw tightened, emotions churning like a gathering storm. Why did Lisa mention me before she died? The uncertainty terrified me. Marcus hesitated. Samantha, I know this is overwhelming. It took me ages to grasp why she wanted me to find you. And do you? Understand, I demanded. He was quiet for a long moment before shaking his head. Not entirely. My chest constricted. I needed answers. The next day, I went to Lisa's old apartment, the last place she'd lived. Marcus came with me. The unit was empty, but the elderly landlord recognized me. Samantha, she murmured, frowning. Lisa spoke of you often. My hands balled into fists. Did she leave anything behind? The woman nodded and disappeared inside, returning with a wooden box. She said to give this to you if you ever came back. My heart thundered as I took it. Inside was a sealed letter. Back at the hotel, Marcus watched intently as I unfolded it. Samantha, if you're reading this, he's found you. You're probably wondering why. My throat tightened. You were my closest friend, but we grew apart. Not by choice, just circumstance. There's something you don't know, something I never got to say. Marcus loved you, Samantha. Before he even knew me, the words froze me in place. Before I met Marcus, he saw you. But you left before he could reach out. When we met, he never mentioned you. Until my final days. When I asked if he was happy, he didn't answer. I'm not telling you this to hurt you. I just want you to know he was as lost as you were. And I believe there's a reason you found each other again. I set the letter down, the room spinning. Marcus loved me before Lisa. His voice was strained. Samantha, I looked up, fury and anguish burning in my eyes. Did you know about this? Marcus's fists clenched. Number Lisa never told me. A bitter laugh escaped me. So what now? Do you want to be with me? because I'm the one you should have loved first. He held my gaze, pain etched into his features. Number I want to be with you because I know I love you now. The admission shattered me. I shut my eyes, struggling to steady myself, but inside another storm raged. Could I ever accept this? I don't know if I can love a man who chose someone else over me. The next morning I left without a word. No note, no text. I needed space. I needed to figure out who I was before deciding if I could let him in. Maybe I'd return. Maybe I wouldn't. But one thing was certain. The storm had changed everything. There was no going back.